With the success of From Software's Souls series, there's going to be games that try to emulate that. And that's exactly what I just got done playing with The Surge, now available. But does this game end up surging ahead, or is it just a sci-fi mess? The Surge does its absolute best to try to be a sci-fi Dark Souls game. The game is chock full of that trial and error, tons of dodging, an overall difficult experience where you're going to die, and die again. The game's sci-fi story has you playing as a character named Warren, who goes to work for a company called Creo, in which case when you become an employee, you pick one of two different job classes to pick from. The more speedy Link style of character, or the more heavy-hitting Rhino style. After experiments done on you to make you into one of the classes, you're dropped into the world, and it's up to you to fend off the sci-fi nightmarish hordes and try to figure out exactly what's going on. The game doesn't really guide you. Outside of a few prompts near the beginning that kind of just give you the basics of the control, it's up to you to explore and figure out where you need to go to next. Usually with you running into a dead end, or running into a group of enemies that kill you, and then you're back to the med bay. Instead of having like a fire in the Souls series, instead here you do have a med bay where you're able to heal, power up your character, and get upgrades. You use the game's money system in order to upgrade your character's power level. Many doors in the game are locked behind a certain power level, so you have to upgrade your character up to that certain point. You can also upgrade your weapons and your gear, usually with the money as well as other scrap-like items that you find. Every time you defeat an enemy, you'll earn a little bit of money, as well as there's other items scattered throughout the course of the game. As far as the equipment goes, you have your standard armor pieces for your head, body, and limbs, as well as a large variety of weapons that you'll be able to get in a few different classes, changing up your overall attack patterns. A big part of your equipment is your implants. You have a limited amount that you're able to put on at a time, though this increases as the game goes on. And these implants will increase the total amount of energy, health, as well as your health items, and being able to do stuff like converting energy that you build up for combos and turning that back into health. When it comes to the game's combat, you have two styles of attack, either vertical or horizontal, using R1 and R2. Dodge or run ends up being the X button, as well as you have a block using L1. You still take damage when you block an enemy attack, so a lot of times it's best to dodge out of the way if you're able to do so. You can lock on to enemies as well as target certain body parts, and it will tell you whether or not that part of their body has armor on it or not, so attacking something without armor, you'll obviously do more damage. Comboing a string of attacks and building up enough energy, you'll be able to hold down the square button to perform an execution move where you'll remove a limb from an enemy and instantly defeat them. One of the best aspects about the combat, though, is a little while into the game you're able to get a drone, which you can then use to attack enemies, distract them, and overall really ends up helping out and making the overall combat a lot more enjoyable. When you end up dying in combat, and you will die quite a bit, you end up dropping all your money, similar to the Souls series, and you have a limited amount of time to get back to that spot and re-pick up your money if you want to try to do so. What's cool though is every time you end up delivering attacks to enemies along the way to pick it back up, it increases the timer. So if you're getting low, you can attack a few enemies and try to get a little bit more time on the clock to get back to wherever you dropped your money supply. My biggest issue when it came to the combat was having to fight the same enemies over and over again anytime you die, or anytime you even just go back to the med bay to upgrade or anything, everything ends up respawning, and you have to go through a lot of the same areas over and over again, so you have to fight a lot of the same stuff, or at least run away from them. There's plenty of shortcuts you'll be able to set up in each area to get back to the med bay a bit easier, but it still doesn't stop you from having to redo certain areas repeatedly. I found though when I was doing a one-on-one battle against an opponent, it was enjoyable. I was able to target certain limbs that I wanted to, be able to quickly dodge out of the way of attacks, and then jump back in to deliver satisfying hits. However, when you're locked in on one enemy, you can easily get blindsided by other enemies just because you don't end up seeing them. You also can't stop animations mid-attack, so when you're doing slower swings, you just end up going through that and you can get hit by not only the enemy you're fighting, but also other enemies in the area just due to the fact you're unable to dodge out of the way at that point. There was also plenty of camera issues just in normal battles, where the camera would end up getting in positions where it was hard to see the enemies, or would end up getting kind of behind certain objects, and I was unable to see exactly what was going on. And this occurred a lot even during boss encounters. When I'm facing big bosses, I ended up not being able to see exactly what was going on to dodge at the right moments. I will say though, the bosses for the most part are enjoyable. Yes, they are extremely frustrating at times, but of course once you learn there's patterns and finally best them, it does feel satisfying for sure. From the technical side of things though, besides the camera, I didn't run into major glitching, crashing, or slowdown of any sort. The Surge is available now for $59.99 on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and if you're on PlayStation, it does feature a full trophy list including a Platinum. Overall, if you're a fan of the Souls game and you've already completed Dark Souls 3 and all the DLC, The Surge may be worth giving a look to if you still have that itch to play a game like this, though I don't feel it had the charm that a game like Dark Souls ends up having. The lore just wasn't all that interesting. The main character, especially not having any customization, I also thought was a big downside in the game, considering the main character was honestly really generic. I also found that too many areas looked a little samey to me as I made it farther into the game, and there was only so many of the types of enemies you could end up battling. With everything said though, I'm going to be giving The Surge a 6 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.